Okay, everyone. Good afternoon. We're going to go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all so much for being here. My name is Wendy. I'm the Executive Director of our Office of Global Learning. We do a lot of things in my office. One of those is supporting our international student and scholar population on immigration matters. We also have a big focus in doing things like Prepare, where we want our international students to feel welcome and that they're included, that they're integrated here on campus. Also, we do a lot with study abroad. So students at Cornell that want to go to another country and study for spring break, or winter, or summer, semester, or a year. I'm going to be your MC for this afternoon, and it's such a pleasure to be here with all of you. I'm so excited that you're here. This is my sixth Prepare, and every time I learn so much about all of you and the places that you're coming from, and also about the campus. So I thought maybe I'd start with talking a little bit about myself and kind of what brought me into this role. And I'll connect that with, I think, what we all want to be a big takeaway for all of you, especially for right now. So when I was an undergraduate at the University near Chicago, I spent a year in Ecuador. Ecuador in South America. Has anyone been to Ecuador before? Raise your hand. Anyone from Ecuador? Oh, beautiful. All right. Well, let's talk afterwards. I miss it so very much. What was fun about my time in Ecuador was that I now realize, looking back, that I was in no way prepared for what I was getting myself into. I had been studying Spanish in Ecuador. I had been studying Spanish in high school, and took some Spanish in college. I don't want to just find this. This is going to be easy. A year, take classes with local students, no problem. I got this. Up until I was on the flight getting ready to arrive, and the pilot announced, we're now 15 minutes from arrival. And then it dawned on me, I'm going to be living with a host family, and I have no idea what I'm going to say to them. So I started kind of getting a little bit anxious. I had a dictionary, Spanish English dictionary. And so I went through the back pages where they have other interesting notes to see if there's anything about what to say to a host family. There was nothing, unfortunately. So I thought, okay, well, I want to do something that's really poetic and demonstrate, my gratitude. So I thought, okay, I'm going to get there at the airport. They're going to be there waiting for me. I'm going to walk up and say, I do not have the words to express my gratitude for taking me in to your home. I was just going to get poetic. It was beautiful. I thought in my mind it was going to be beautiful. Made my way to the airport. There was a family waiting for me. I walked up to them, and this terrible accent just basically said in Spanish, I don't have words. And that was it, right? So they're just staring at me, I'm staring at them. And the host mom, she was so nice, she just patted me on the back and said, it's going to be okay. And just kind of shooed me into their car and off we went. And, what was so fun about that experience in the beginning was what I learned to do, because I really couldn't understand anything that was happening around me. I learned to just mimic people's facial expressions. Right? And so as they were talking to me, I couldn't understand anything. Whenever they would look concerned, I would just put a concerned face on. Or if they were saying something, they were happy. No clue what they were trying to relate to me, right? So this continued on, I was able to kind of continue struggling through things. I remember one of my goals for my time in Ecuador was to meet local students and become friends with them, right? So, I had this silly idea, right, in advance of like me sitting out, like in a patio on the street, sitting with these, Ecuadorian intellectuals, smoking, I didn't smoke, but smoking, talking about philosophy, right? I had this great idea of how I get to know people. And so finally I had a chance to actually, maybe make a friend. This guy was in my classes, seemed really cool. I had piercings, he had piercings, like this is gonna be great. And finally the day came when we started talking. He said, oh, so what do you like to do? All in Spanish again. And all I could remember was my high school Spanish class. My mind went blank. All I could remember was Me gusta tocar la guitarra y jugar basketball, which means I like to play the guitar and play basketball. I've never played guitar in my life. So here I was trying to make friends, absolutely lying to this person and feeling so, I don't know, just kind of so empty. Like, there's nothing that I could really express about myself and how interesting and interested I was. So, this continued on, and, I remember reading some of my classes and trying to keep up in Spanish. And all I was doing for the notes that I was taking was just like, at some point, just writing down the sounds that I was hearing. Not words, just like, I think they made these sounds. And so when I get back home, I'm trying to decipher what those sounds actually were. So, flailing, really trying to be optimistic and positive. One of my favorite experiences, though, was because when I would go for lunch, I was way too scared to sit with other Ecuadorian students, right? Just because my Spanish level, I was so nervous all the time. So I'd sit where professors would sit. And, just kind of listening on them, but not really engaged, but just, And I'd always hear them saying to each other, like when they arrive or when they leave, like, buen provecho. It's like, buen provecho. And I had no clue what that was, but I thought, this must be what people say to each other, to kind of, say goodbye, say hello, like this kind of, educated, way to. So I'm like, great, like I finally figured something out. So I was going provincial everywhere. When I was talking about the taxi, I was in the taxi driver, going provincial. When I was talking about the bus, going provincial. I buy something in the store, going provincial. Like, this is awesome. And so the day that I was there with the daughter of my host family playing cards, like a card game, and she beat me at the card game, and I said, we have provincial. 210. She said, what? Going provincial. I said, yeah, provincial, good job. She's like, and she's trying to help me out. Basically, what she said is, going provincial means like, don't have the teeth. Means like, and so I had this like, my life flashing before my eyes. It's like bald at that time already, right? This bald gringo walking around, just confusing the heck out of people. What is happening here? So, but I ended up making the experience work. I pushed through. I was there for the full year. It was a really fulfilling experience. What I learned to do was be independent. I learned to be resourceful up to a point. What really I learned to do was doggy paddle. Right? You're not really swimming. You're just kind of treading water. You're just sitting there. And when I reflect on that experience, I realized if I would have asked for help earlier, not just with Spanish, but with a whole host of things in my experience, I could have had an even better experience than I did. So I say all of this, number one, to remind all of you that it's okay to make mistakes. Part of you being here is to make mistakes. That's part of being a student, coming in as international students, whether or not you have, language things that you're working through or other aspects of your time here that you're working through. Be yourself, but also ask for help. This is a key thing that I want you to take away from the next couple of hours that we're going to be together. There are going to be a variety of people here talking about resources that Cornell offers. Coming to an institution like Cornell, part of the Ivy League, yes, has tons to do with the level of academics that you're going to be engaging in. It has a ton to do with the people that you're going to be studying with and all the co-curricular, extra stuff that you can do here. But a key aspect is taking advantage of the resources that Cornell provides, whether that's asking your faculty member, your professor, your TA for help. If that means going and getting writing help, if that means talking with your resident advisor in your dorm because you're not understanding something, if that means getting mental health support, because you know what, it's really hard. It's dark, it's cold, you're far from family, you miss food. All of that is not just okay, it's not just encouraged, but it's expected. If you don't take advantage of all those resources, you're really missing out on all that Cornell has to offer. So I want to leave you with that. Really do ask for help, take advantage of resources, listen closely to the things that our next couple of speakers are going to be talking about, because we're all here to support you. So with that, I'm Rachel, and I will see you all soon. So we're gonna have to. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. It's a live mic. Well, welcome. Really excited to be part of your welcome to Cornell. You're in for a phenomenal experience, and you're going to be hearing from a lot of great people today. I'm here to give you your first lesson as Cornell students. I'm going to teach you a little bit about Cornell's international history, because one of the really neat things about Cornell is that international students have been here from the very beginning. And that was even part of the vision for Cornell, that we would be an institution that drew people to Ithaca from around the world. And so you're part of that founding vision. You absolutely belong at Cornell because of this unique international history. You might have seen Cornell's motto around and on materials. I would found an institution where any person can find instruction in any study. And this was a quote from our founder, Ezra Cornell, the namesake of the university. And this was his vision for what Cornell should be. And he was thinking of a lot of different things when he said any person. He was thinking about any religion. He was thinking about any gender, any race, any socioeconomic class, but he was also thinking about any nationality. He wanted students to come to Cornell, to come to Ithaca from all over the place. And Cornell really had a global mindset from the beginning. In fact, two of our first three presidents were diplomats. And they presided over about 50 years of Cornell's early history. Cornell's first president, Andrew Dixon White, was the U.S. minister to Russia and U.S. minister to Germany. And then our third president, Jacob Gould Sherman, was the ambassador to Greece, to Germany, and to China. And so these two gentlemen really brought a global perspective to their work at Cornell and to the campus. President White was the president of the American delegation at the Hague Peace Conference in 1899. Both of them did significant work abroad and in the U.S. diplomatic service. When Cornell opened in 1868, we also had international faculty from the very start. When students first arrived, we had two international faculty among the founding 26 faculty. One was the founder of veterinary medicine at Cornell, a man from Scotland named James Law. And one is the namesake of one of the major buildings on the Art Squad, and that's Goldwin Smith, who was from England, had actually been a professor at Oxford. But they both came to Ithaca to help launch this new university. Cornell's second year, we had more international faculty. Two German professors joined from Germany. And then Cornell had international students from the very start. This is one of my favorite things. This is Ezra Cornell's pocket diary. And so when Cornell opened, he kept track of where each student came from as they arrived at Cornell, because he was really proud of the fact that students were coming from all over. So you can see there's a bunch of US states in there, but you might spot a few international, a few countries outside the US, Canada, Nova Scotia. There's England and Haiti listed. Looks like Bermuda, Africa. You've got Sweden, Hungary, Japan. So this is 1870. Ezra Cornell is keeping track of where students are coming from. And if you think it's difficult to get to Ithaca in 2024, imagine getting to Ithaca in 1870 from Japan, for instance. It was a long trip. You probably weren't going to go home for spring break, certainly. And so it gives you an idea. Cornell was really drawing people from all over the world. In 1876, a student newspaper on campus said, "Cornell is now a cosmopolitan college. Strangers from every clime have besieged her doors, many of them coming thousands of miles to enter her classic portals." And it noted that as of 1876, 14 different languages were spoken within the student body. Within Cornell's first 20 years, 120 international students attended Cornell. And within our first 40 years, 700 international students attended Cornell. So really, international students were part of Cornell from the start. It is worth noting most of those early international students were men, given the challenges that women faced in higher education at the time. Cornell was really a pioneer for women in higher education, but many of the international students who came early on were men. The first student of color to attend Cornell was a student from Haiti. William Buller arrived in 1869, attended Cornell for a year.
Two of the first students from Asia are these two notable individuals. Nagasawa Kanaye, he becomes the first Japanese permanent resident of the United States. That gives the idea of how unusual it was for folks to be traveling around the world. He was part of a group of Japanese students who arrived in the US and were the first to end up staying in the US. Ryokichi Yatabe in the class of 1876, the first Asian graduate from Cornell, goes on to have a notable career in Tokyo as an academic and a botanist. Some of Cornell's faculty did work internationally, and they helped recruit more international students to Cornell. This guy with a great mustache was one of the first geology professors at Cornell, but he did his research in Brazil. And so he would go on geological expeditions to Brazil throughout the 1870s, and he would recruit Brazilian students to come to Cornell. He would meet people while he was there and say, hey, there's this great university in Ithaca, New York, you should go. And Cornell ended up educating a significant number of the first Brazilian students to get degrees in the United States. In fact, there were so many Brazilian students at Cornell in the 1870s that they formed a Brazilian student organization, one of the first international student organizations in the US. And there was even a Portuguese language newspaper on campus published by the Brazilian students in the 1870s. So it gives you an idea of how many international students were arriving at Cornell early on. Elias Fausto Pacheco Jordao becomes the first Brazilian student to earn a degree in the United States. And he graduates from Cornell in 1874, goes back to Brazil. I believe there's a street or a town named after him in Brazil, had a political career there. Francisco de Paula Rodriguez y Valdez comes to Cornell from Cuba, and he becomes the first student of African descent to graduate from Cornell, earns his degree in 1878. And international students at Cornell begin to form international student organizations pretty early on. And one of the most notable ones was an organization called the Cosmopolitan Club, founded in 1904, lasts into the 1950s, no longer exists today, although this building is in College Town. This building was built as an international students fraternity, basically. It was a residential community for international students. It would host cultural nights and organizations or events around different cultures with themed music and dance and food to help all different cultures feel at home at Cornell. Played a really important role as a community for international students for about 50 years in Cornell's history. Here's another photo of the Cosmopolitan Club. Their motto was, above all nations is humanity. And you'll find there's actually a bench on the art squad right outside of Goldwin Smith Hall that says, above all nations is humanity. It's the oldest bench on campus, placed there in the 19th century, and it was given by Goldwin Smith, that first international faculty member from England. That was a phrase he had coined, and it became a phrase used around the world at different places. It's actually the motto of the University of Hawaii. There's several different organizations internationally that have taken that phrase, but it originated here at Cornell. The number of students from Asia really increases around the turn of the century at Cornell. The Chinese Students Association is founded in 1904, and it's followed by several other organizations. For instance, Alpha Zeta actually founded a little bit before that. Alpha Zeta becomes the first Greek letter organization for Latino students in the United States, founded at Cornell in 1890. Doesn't last more than a few years, but paves the way for other Greek letter Latino organizations in the US. You can see it was described here as the foreigners fraternity in the yearbook at the time, but students from Central America and South America were welcomed in that organization. And Cornell has had several Alpha chapters, founding chapters of Latino organizations, Greek letter organizations in more recent history. Rho Psi becomes the first Greek letter organization for Asian students founded in the United States, and it's also founded at Cornell in 1916. Also doesn't exist today, but another organization that played an important role in creating community for students from abroad. And then we have organizations like the Filipino Students Organization, founded in 1920. And so, dozens of organizations founded within Cornell's first 75 years or so for different international communities at the university. A couple other really notable early international students that I thought were worth calling out. Hu Shi, class of 1914, and his classmate, Zhao Yunren. both students from China who came to Cornell together. And some of you might recognize these names, very important individuals. Hu Shi, leader in the New Culture movement, and the Chinese Literary Revolution played a role in sort of the switch to speaking and writing in the vernacular Chinese. And then Zhao Yanren, father of modern Chinese linguistics, wrote one of the most influential linguistic textbooks. Also coined the term potsticker and stir fry. He worked with his wife and daughter to write one of the first popular English language Chinese food cookbooks. And he had to come up with some English terms for traditional Chinese dishes. So if you enjoy Chinese food, you can think of these early Cornell students. Cornell actually just named a new residence hall after Hu Shi a couple of years ago. And so some of you might be living in Hu Shi Hall. It's our first building at Cornell named after an international student. And there's the bench, the Above All Nations Humanity bench that I mentioned, which is right outside Goldwin Smith to the west here. But one of my favorite stories about Hu Shi is that when he was a student at Cornell, he liked to sit on this bench. And the story is that he would sit on it, so it said, above all nations is who. Which I always thought that was a great anecdote about Hu Shi. There's no photo evidence of him doing this, but shows a pretty good sense of humor on his part. Students from South Asia began enrolling in larger numbers also in the early 1900s. In 1905, a big group of students come from India, sponsored by the Indian government to study agriculture at Cornell. And a lot of early international students were studying agriculture. We were one of the best colleges of agriculture in the world. And a lot of students would come here and bring their knowledge back to their home countries after graduating. And this is a group of the ag school's faculty with students from India in 1907. Another Cornellian who played an important role with our international community is a man named Willard Straight. And you'll experience Willard Straight Hall, the building pictured right here, one of our main buildings on campus for student activities and the Dean of Students office, some eateries and things in there. But Willard Straight was a student in the class of 1901. He studied architecture at Cornell. And as a student, he was known for befriending all the international students. He was really interested in learning about other cultures, and that was important to him. His parents were missionaries in China and Japan when he was growing up. And after he graduates, he moves to China and ends up working in Korea, works in China, and gets involved in the US Foreign Service, becomes a diplomat. Becomes well known amongst American, Chinese, and Korean diplomats while he was over there. And by the age of 29, he becomes the chief of the U.S. State Department's Far Eastern Division. So advances through the ranks of the U.S. State Department pretty quickly at a young age. There he is while he's in Korea. He actually founds a magazine called Asia Magazine based on his work in there. He also founds the magazine The New Republic, which still exists today. And at the close of World War I, he ends up going to Paris to prepare for the American delegation at the peace talks at the close of World War I. And he unfortunately dies of the influenza epidemic at the time. But he leaves a bequest to Cornell, and he says he wants that bequest to be used to make Cornell a more human place, to build community for Cornell students. He thought that was really important. And so if you go into Willard Straight Hall, that was the building that was built with his bequest. And the idea was he wanted to bring people together across differences, to create a better sense of community at Cornell. And if you go into the lobby, you'll notice there's some beautiful murals in the lobby. A lot of them have Asian imagery based on the time that Willard Straight spent in Asia. And you'll notice there's a Latin quote above the door, which means nothing human is alien to me, which was speaking to this idea of bringing people together across different cultures, creating community. And at the opening of the building back in 1925, his widow spoke at the opening, and she said, "It is our hope that Willard Straight Hall may play a part in cementing really great friendships between men and women, between faculty and students, between men of all groups, races, and nationalities. Because human relationships open new worlds to Willard Straight, it is our hope that the union may in some measure recreate life in these terms for others, an instrument for the illumination and enhancement of personal and social living." And so that was the idea behind this building that you'll likely spend some time in, this idea of bringing people together across cultures. I think it's neat to look how international Cornell's student population was by looking at early alumni directories. So this is a look at the 1908 directory of all living alumni of Cornell at the time. And if you look through it, you can see how many alumni. There's Willard Straight living in Mukden at the time in 1908. But you can see Cornellians were everywhere as of 1908. These are places around the world that Cornellians were living within our first 50 years of existence. Korea, Turkey, and here's Europe, Cornellians throughout Europe and different countries as well. And so it gives you a snapshot of Cornellians truly were an international group early on in our history. I'll wrap up by mentioning one last interesting thing, and this was the first major international academic project at Cornell. In the 1920s, a group of Cornell students got together and they wanted to do something to address famine in China that was happening at the time. And they ended up teaming up with a group of faculty, and the university decided to take on this project in China to improve crop yields. And it was considered one of the first major international academic collaborations in US history. It became a model for international educational exchange and government cooperation. And it trained a generation of Chinese plant scientists. This group of faculty spent years working in China, developing new developing new crops or improving on crops in China. They worked on a wide variety of different grains at the time. And so this was a huge initiative, and it became a model for other initiatives at Cornell. And over the next several decades, Cornell would do international projects around the world. And it paved the way for what would become the Einaudi Center at Cornell. The Einaudi Center for International Studies was founded in 1961 as a university-wide hub for a lot of the international collaboration and academic projects happening at the university. And so shows that the academic side of Cornell's international work has been at the university from very early on as well. So I'll wrap it up there. If you're interested in learning more about Cornell's international history, a book was just published this past May about Cornell's international history. So if it's something you'd like to explore more, there is a book with all different chapters about aspects of Cornell's international history. But I'll wrap it up by just saying, welcome to Cornell. You're in for a real treat. It's a wonderful community here, and I hope you have a fantastic time. I'm happy to. Oh, thank you. We have time for a couple questions. So if you have a couple questions, happy to answer anything. If there's something you're curious about Cornell's history, I do teach a course about Cornell history. I forgot to introduce myself at the beginning, but I teach a course in the American Studies program that's on the history of Cornell. And so it's just a one-credit fun course. I hope I see some of you in that class down the road. But anyone have any questions about Cornell history or anything I talk about? I know you just arrived, so probably still soaking it all in. All right, well, I'll turn it over to our next speaker then. Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, thank you very much. And actually, I forgot to introduce Corey. I'm so excited after telling my silly stories. Corey Earle, University historian, Cornell historian. Another round of applause. This is actually, I think this is the first time that we've had Corey come and speak at this event. And I want to thank Margaret, for really thinking this up. And I think it's just such a phenomenal way to show, again, with the Office of Global Learning, Global Cornell, our focus in making you feel welcome and that you're included. What a great way to show that that's not necessarily new, right? You've been welcome and included all along. So thank you so much, Corey. But speaking of Cornell and all things international, our next speaker really is such a strong advocate for international, for all of you, continuing with all the work that Cornell has done. I'm so excited to introduce Wendy Wolford, who is our Robert A. and Ruth E. Paulson Professor of Global Development and our Vice Provost for International Affairs. Wendy.
Yeah, it's So good to see you all. Welcome. I'm glad you made it. It might be easier to get to Cornell or to Ithaca than it was in the early 1900s from Corey's presentation. But I bet many of you traveled pretty far to get here, or it took you a long time. I apologize for that, Cornell. We have a saying that Cornell is centrally isolated, which just means it's sort of far from everywhere. Who thinks they traveled the farthest to get here? In terms of number of hours? Bunch of hands, yeah. How long did they take you?
Probably almost a day.
Yeah. How many planes, buses, trains,
It's like 19 hours of planes and 5 hours.
Where are you coming from? Yeah. Well, who else had their hand? You're in the front row, you want to stay on? Everyone else have it?
Yeah. Well, I had like 23 hours.
Where are you coming from?
From Romania.
Yeah.
And I had like street friends.
Any delays? Any?
Oh yeah. 2 hours.
No, the delays in and out of the midnight area at airports are pretty tough. One more, yeah.
I traveled for like 27 hours.
Where are you coming from?
15 hours of flight, and then like let's say like 12 hours of like Uber and bus and train.
Yeah. Where are you coming from?
I'm from China.
So people from all over, and it is hard to get to Cornell. What I love about Ithaca is that it doesn't feel to me like a provincial place. The Cosmopolitan Club, people are here from all over. 60% of all of our graduate students are international. 26% of all of our students overall are international. So you'll hear many languages. You yourself are contributing to this great history here at Cornell. Hopefully it doesn't feel like a small place. It's just slightly removed from everywhere else. And that just gives you time to focus on your studies, I guess, and to make friends. I myself was an international student. I went to McGill University. But before I went to McGill in Montreal, in Canada, any Canadians? Excellent. Only one. Two. Okay. Did you just say you're in France? I went to Canada as an American student, and I'm not going to take this out on you, but I did get picked on a lot for being American. Lots of things said about American by my Canadian friends. It's all in good fun, and it was one of the best experiences ever. I can't tell you how glad I am I went internationally. Before I went to McGill, I took a year off after high school. I'd been studying Latin for many, many years. And my last year of high school, I went to a local college and I took Italian and went to Italy, to Florence for a year, and I worked in discotheque as a cocktail waitress. And I told my mom that as I was leaving. What are you doing? Oh, I'm fine. I can still remember her at the airport. But, and she kept saying, I just really worry you're not going to go to college, that you'll never go back to school. And I've taken off many years. I lived for a year in Brazil. I lived for that year in Italy. And I've taken off a lot of time to travel and to live in other places. Every time I go back, she would say, I'm just worried that you're not going to go back to school. So I am a faculty member here just to prove my mother wrong. But welcome here. As Brendan said, this whole office, the Office of the Vice Provost of International Affairs, Brandon's office and team, the Office of Global Learning, we're all here for you, truly. So we advocate for international students, we provide support, we talk to their deans and to their faculty members and you can still hear me? We talk to the deans, we talk to the federal government, to our state governments about the importance of international students and the contributions that you all bring. I can't emphasize enough what Brandon said about advocating for yourself, about speaking up and asking for help. So many times I went and I lived in Brazil for a year, off of college, and I went back to Brazil, and I worked with a social event. And so many times I didn't ask, what do you need? And I think back on that now, and it's like Brandon, I think, if I had just allowed myself to not know everything, right? You feel like you should know what people are doing while they're walking in a particular direction. But you don't even know that here, but I feel like when you're at your home, you would know more and you would ask for help. But when you're somewhere different, it can be difficult to know what's going on. And you just need to ask your classmates, your teachers. I'm a faculty member, and I love it when students come see me. I can't even tell you the number of office hours I've sat there with my door open, nobody comes. And you kind of like, you feel like a loser, you know, if you don't have any friends. So go see your faculty, ask them questions. Don't just go when you're unhappy with your grade. If you go see them beforehand, you will all be happy with your grade. But if you go see them beforehand, then when you do have questions about your grade, it isn't as awkward, right? So ask early and often. Find out what it is they're doing, who they are. They'll be happy to learn who you are. Really, I think it's one of the things about American institutions. There's a lot of emphasis on participation, on active engagement. We have a whole office of active learning here, which means that faculty really try, and they're given resources to try to plan activities that will bring students in, right? So I don't know about you, but I was pretty used to just sitting there and taking notes. I actually really like to take notes when I see the joys. I like to just sit in the audience. I don't like small group work. You know, there's always somebody who's going to do your work, right? But it's actually much better if you can be engaged and talk to your colleagues, and especially if you're not totally sure what might have been happening in class. So small work is something small group work is something that is actively encouraged, and so is participation. So put your hand up, jump in, you will find many of your colleagues doing that, and you can orient the conversation around you if you put your hand up. People put their hand up not always because they know the answer, but sometimes because they like to hear themselves talk. So join the conversation and engage, and I think you will really feel like it's rewarding. So just quickly, I am Wendy Wolford, and I'm faculty member in House. So this is the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences. I'm in the Department of Food Development. I have been a professor since 2001 and here since 2010. I mostly work in Brazil, Ecuador, and in Mozambique, and Portugal. And I've lived in a bunch of other places than that. And because I am the Vice Provost of International, it means that I get to meet a whole bunch of people from all over. And I will tell you that we have an incredible community here on campus, but also once you leave, we have an incredible community around all over the world. So if you're looking for your first job, or you're trying to decide where to live in the city, or you don't know what to do in the evenings in the new town you move to, you can join the Cornell Club, you can reach out to the list of advisors that we have who are located all around the world, and you'll get back and back.
Okay, I have some things I am supposed to tell you. You know that. You heard that from Corey, but I do think
first presentation is so fantastic. And there will be a short quiz at the end of today. No worries, this is fine. The University of Cornell is unique in the entire country because we are the only land-grant institution that is also an Ivy League. So no other institution combines those two things, being an Ivy League institution and a land grant. And what that means is that we are equally committed to academic excellence and engagement and development. And you'll feel that in everything you see here at Cornell. You'll feel it in the classes where there might be a component where you can go into the community to do work. or any kind of questions that your faculty are taking up, the way that they're engaged in local issues. You'll see that everywhere. Not only are we the only land grant and Ivy League, we were the first Ivy League institution to women. And the history professor that he showed you, or the professor of English, Golden Smith, or you can't get Golden Smith Hall here, he actually left Cornell into Canada in protest. He went to Canada in protest when we let women. And I love this idea that there was a major person at Cornell who objected, and the university still tried to work with it because they thought that's the right thing to have been in the university. So we were the first Ivy League to admit women, the first Ivy League to have people of color, the first Ivy League to have PhDs who were female and African American PhDs. It's a pretty wonderful institution, and you will find we are all very proud of it. Maybe you think a little too much. Okay, so this is what I was talking about before. International students all over 130 different countries. 26% of our student body overall is international. And I think that's an undercount because actually we count international as those whose primary passport is from another country. So there are people who hold two passports, there are people who are very international in their upbringing. So this is maybe a slight undercount. We also have hundreds and hundreds of international scholars every year who come through to give talks, to take classes. They're PhD students, they're visiting scholars. So you'll see all of that on campus. The university, as you hopefully know, is committed to international engagement. We were one of the first, and so you saw the Nanking Rice Project in China. We're actually starting a new project on rice in China, almost, just over 100 years after this first one took place. So this idea of engaging internationally, we have about 240 institutional relationships with universities and other partners abroad. The student body that you are part of, the incoming class, the class of 2028, has, you probably know this, 442 international students from 69 countries. Those top countries are the top in terms of the number of students who are coming from those countries. As I said before, the Office of Global Learning, Brandon is the head of the office. The whole office is dedicated to supporting the international community that comes to Cornell and the Cornellians who then go abroad. So education abroad is in that office, but more importantly for you right now, the Office of International Services and International Inclusion. All across campus, we have a number of global research centers and institutes. So I would say about 90% of our faculty are engaged in research and teaching that takes up either international collaborators or international topics. You can get involved in any one of those. Maybe even more importantly are the number of student groups that are focused on international topics. We of course have an International Students Union. Do we have anybody coming from ISU? We do. So you'll meet a representative from the International Students Union, but the international organizations in general are fantastic. Meet regularly, plan events. You saw that they started in the early 1900s. They continue with socials and galas and charity events, and they're just an important community for many. This is a former ISU president who was one of our graduating international students who won the year's award for international students. So the office that I represent, which includes Brandon's office, is called Global Cornell because it really does have within it the international programs on campus. This is our what's in Global Cornell, the Education Abroad, International Services. Corey mentioned the Einaudi Center for International Studies. I'll tell you a little bit about that. Global Hub, Global Operations, and Global Grand Challenges.
This is the Mario Ianardi Center. So if you are interested in weekly seminars or fellowships from all of the different regions, this is a good place to go. They have about 16,000 people attend their different events in any given year. That's a good place to go for travel funding, for internships, all of that abroad. International services, of course, you're going to meet Hirsch and find out even more about that. Let me just tell you that the team there is fantastic. If you have any questions about immigration, your status, work, that office is your go-to place in terms of seeking advice. But also there's a website, international services. If you look for you probably have it in your information. The website was just voted the best website on campus because it has so much information. So before you think there's no way to find out how to do my taxes, you probably don't have to do your taxes. But if before you think, well, what do I do if I want an internship? Go to that website because there's so much information and you can find answers to your questions. If you can't find answers to your questions there, then reach out to one of the advisors in international services. They're there to help you. Education abroad. I think a lot of times international students will think that they've already come internationally. The idea of going to another location internationally might seem unnecessary or a stretch. We had a student in Ghana who, when she first heard the idea of going abroad in a summer research project, said she thought it was going to be really boring. And it's in part because that research project was in Zambia. And then she decided to go and start a class. And she loved it and ended up doing an honors thesis comparing public health in Ghana and Zambia. So there is a ton of opportunity to get international once you're here for week-long trips during the spring semester, for the fall break, not fall break, sorry, for the winter break, for summer and for semester-long study. About 600 to 700 undergraduate students go. Did you tell me to hurry up? No, I can see you on the corner of that. 600 to 700 students, undergraduate students do study abroad every year. And we have a real fantastic portfolio of places that you can go. We have a set of places and institutions that we have sort of a special relationship with, and those are in these countries and the top institutions in those countries. So if you've ever thought that you wanted to go and spend a semester at Imperial College or at the University of Sydney or at the Danish Technical University, those are our very close partners, and we have a lot of opportunities to go there and partner for all of these things. Almost all of our faculty do research. All of our faculty do research, but almost all of them will engage undergraduates or graduate students in their research. So ask them. Maybe they have an opportunity for you to work with them during the semester, and then you could travel with them. I've taken undergraduates with me to Mozambique and to Ecuador. So we went to Galapagos. So just ask if there are opportunities for you to get involved in research. Brandon's office, International Services, also does a lot of work with inclusion and advocacy. If you have a specific issue where you say the federal government of the United States does this and this is not fair or right, you can come and talk to us. We can't, of course, they're pretty busy. It can be hard to get their attention, but it's good to know for us. And that's one of the things that we do is advocate to the government, but also the office provides an incredible amount of resources for all of you. So I want to spend just probably about 5 minutes talking about our core values here at Cornell, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about academic integrity, which is a core value, but it's embedded in all of these. So the core values are values that were sort of crowdsourced by the whole university in 2017. The president at that time, President Pollock, who just sat down, who just retired,
he went through the whole university. There were a lot of conversations about what are the values that we hold most dear. So of course, we have lots of values, but what are the ones that we really say, these are values that define Cornell? There are a lot of good institutions. What sets us apart, and what would we say we really can't let go of? And so all of these probably resonate very much with why you chose Cornell. You probably already heard about them in other contexts. But I just want to point out the free and open inquiry expression, because many people coming from other countries might find the US and Cornell's approach to free speech, free expression to be pretty different than what you might have experienced at home. And I will say that many countries will have protections on speech or restrictions on speech, and they have reasons for doing so. The policy and the value that we defend very strongly here is this free expression. Last year was a theme of free expression. The whole year was devoted to helping the community to talk about, think about, understand, debate what does free expression mean. And if you've been following the news, of course, with all of the protests, free expression became, issue number one. What does it mean to be able to say what you think? What does it mean to be able to protest? What does it mean to be able to have a conversation where you feel like somebody has said something so ridiculous and wrong, and to be what do you do in that situation, right? So we're not any longer in a theme here where free expression is the theme, but this is something really important for us all to understand of being this core value now. And the way that we think about it is that all of our rights come with certain obligations, rights, and certain responsibilities. And so free expression is a right. It is a right to be able to speak your mind and to listen to other people when they speak their mind. Even if they're saying something that you disagree with, or people have the right to say what they think. They also have a responsibility not to interrupt or interfere with your right to speak your mind. So disruption or shouting something down or trying to prevent them from speaking is something we take really seriously. We hope that this year coming year, that we're able to have conversations about difficult things, but to do so in a way that is respectful and oriented towards trying to understand where everybody's coming from. And then agreeing to disagree with something, but allowing that expression and maintaining your own right to express what you think. This is going to be something, that comes up this year. We have an election. It's actually a super election year. So in many of your own countries, you might be having elections. And this country has never been so good. So if you think about our two-party system, and you think about all of the differences that people have politically, culturally, socially, economically. This is a moment when there's real division, particularly politically, but that has a lot to do with economic, social, and other matters. And so it's never been more important, especially on university campus, where the whole point is to learn. It's never been more important to hear people, to be able to speak in mind, and to have education. Any questions about the expression or about that means? There will be probably different kinds of events. So all of you have to go through something that they call IDP, which is the Interdialogue Project, which is learning to talk about different. And hopefully you do that and enjoy it. That's one of those things, I don't like small groups where I thought, I have to go into this learning how to talk kind of seminar. It's fantastic. Listening to them talk about what it means to be able to have a conversation is really helpful. Because it might help too, if you hear something and you say, that's not right, it kind of gives you a set of tools to think about how to respond when you hear the moment.
Okay. So that's free and open expression. Then academic integrity, this is just something that we go through at every orientation. Academic integrity looks the same across institutions around the world. This is just a piece on the resources that you can find related to academic integrity. It has become harder and harder, I think, with AI, with ChatGPT, OpenAI, ChatGPT, with also different traditions of citation. You know, I think I had one student who cited only at the end of every long paragraph. So many things were written in the paragraph that didn't come from that student, that weren't something they knew, that everybody knows. That's the definition of undecisive. When you say something that you learned directly from another source that couldn't have been known in general, and you cite it. So this you can only cite it at the end of the paragraph, when a lot of information came from that source. And the way we had set up citation in class, that wasn't enough citing, right? So we had to have a good conversation about traditions of citation and how, in the class I was teaching, that I expected people to cite the ideas we were including. So find out from your professors is going to differ. Some classes, we've had so much conversation about this. In the dean's meeting with the faculty about, you know, should we have faculty allow ChatGPT in the classes, right? Should you be able to use ChatGPT to do your homework? What do you think? Who thinks yes? Yeah, so what does that mean?
Not stealing idea, but enhancing.
Excellent. So using ChatGPT not to have to do your work for you, but to enhance the work that you're doing. Who doesn't think you should? Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, I think it's a very powerful tool for like researchers to take like facts and history. So
yeah,
it makes things a lot quicker and allows you to have more space to like work on the like analytics.
So much faster. I actually just finished writing a book on Wendy, and I don't know, like 5 or 6 months ago, I started to get really panicked that maybe ChatGPT could have written my book better than I did. So I put into ChatGPT, we have a Cornell version of it. I put in it writing the history of agriculture politics in Mozambique, and I was so happy because it was very bad. So you still need to read my book if you want to know the definitive. So we had a campus-wide conversation. We had a team on AI that was led by the Dean of Computer Information Science, JB, to develop, who was fantastic. And she had a very strong team from Earth Sciences around ethics and music and society, like next how to suppress it. And the conclusion was exactly what you said, which was it depends on class. So whether you can use ChatGPT or any other kind of AI tool is going to be up to the professor. So look at your syllabi. And then when you can use it, it is always as a tool to help you to refine your ideas or use like a calculator, right? Do some of the basic work so that you can mastermind and produce the rigorous product. When you do that, when you use ChatGPT, then you get some excitement, right? So say, this is what I did using ChatGPT. The thing about it is that it does produce good and unique answers that is very tempting, and you might, you know, not even be doing it intentionally, but forget to attribute. And that's one of the things that we've really been working on, how to make sure that people attribute. The other thing is that you will be asked to do a lot of collaborative work. I know I've mentioned this before, this is a small group. You will do a lot of collaborative work on this, and it's always good to find out in that group who is going to get credit for what and how,
and establish that early so that by the time you're done, you know, oh, okay, I'm going to get a grade on this part, or we're getting graded for everything as a group. So you got to make sure that things are done what it's supposed to be instead of always slacking off. So figure that out early and often. Yeah, you'll hear more about this. There's an academic code, there's a process for violations that you just don't want to get caught up in. So just find out what the right citation and attribution process is ahead of time so that it isn't, you don't become inserted into that process. Always give credit. I think that's key. I think that's all. I think you all know all of this. You're here because you're very, very smart and you figured out how to manage your time. But I guess there is a thing in engineering, and I'm an engineer, where something is 10 times greater, then it's qualitatively different. It's like you go up sort of linearly until you hit a threshold at 10 times more. It might be more than 10 times more here at Cornell because there's so much to do. There are so many clubs, there are so many places to visit. So managing your time, getting to things early so that you don't have to rush, and doing things early will allow you to do the proper work in terms of citation. You'll get these over and over again. That's all I had to say. I know that ended on a kind of rule and regulation set of things. We really have to talk about those, and one of those, I think the three expression is where the work is here because of all of the elections and great follow let's go next. You can go next because some of these things can be really challenging, and particularly when you're dealing with not only a new university and a new set of friends, but also a new country and potentially a whole new set of ways of doing things. And so it can be really challenging. So that's bringing that, and I identify, find out who you can go to and ask questions to get help early. And you can always, you can always come back to my office, you can find it from the store, the local pavement in Bay Hall. You can email Wendy, you can see us, if you have any questions. All right, thank you very much.
Well, Wendy, thank you so very much. Everyone, in your years here, you're going to see a lot more of Wendy Wolford. Thank you so much, Wendy, for your advocacy for international and really setting the international agenda for Cornell. So now I would like to introduce Kim Garrison, Associate Dean of Students, who will be talking about wellness and inclusion. Kim, you want to come on up for a moment? And I'm going to try to figure out this mic. So I'm just going to do a couple of sound check things. So folks in the back, you can hear me just fine. Can you hear me fine still? Okay. So Kim, we get a little bit of weird whistling going on, so you might need to experiment with your couple things. So
let's see how to do this. All right.
Then to advance, you'll just go ahead and hit that one.
Ready. All right.
Thank you.
So, hello friends. I call a lot of people my friends. I have a 6-year-old, well, now a 7-year-old and a 10-year-old. So I have little kids, right? And so for me, we're always talking about friends and how to be a good friend and what does that look like and all of those things. So I sometimes start presentations with college students and we're like, friends, Kim, why are we using the word friends? I'm like, because I have a 7 and 10-year-old, so we talk about friendship a lot. The 10-year-old's also in middle school almost, and so there's drama always in the 10-year-old world. You just wondered. My name is Garrison. I'm going to stand over here. I use the pronouns she and her. We'll talk more about pronouns in a few minutes. This is a reminder for folks. I work in student support and advocacy services. Michelle Van Eskren, who's going to present with me, was not able to join me today, which is a bummer because I think she's one of the coolest students around. You can tell her I told you that too. Hopefully she lives up to the hype. Of that. No, I'm just kidding, she's great. So we're gonna chat about a number of different moving pieces today. All right, some questions to get us started. Who's studying here in the US for the first time? There's a hand. Ooh, yes. Well done. Who has studied or lived in the US before? You could just say lived in the US before. Okay. Cool. And I always love this last question. How many of you speak more than 2 languages? What? I love it. I see some like shaking hands, like I think that means like 2-ish, but that's really cool. That's amazing. Thank you so much. That helps to give me some good guide. I like to say that Wolford is beautiful all year round. It is 70 degrees and sunny every day. I'm kidding, that's okay. As we know, it's raining out today, right? And so that is not always true. That goes really well on a day when it is super sunny all day, and folks are like, what? And we're like, yeah. And then it snows, you know? So with that, I would also love this question. How many folks have experience with snow? Great, okay, so most hands in the space. All right, friends who don't have experience with snow, you probably saw somebody near you that has that experience with snow, become friends. Ask all the questions, right? No, I'm just kidding. But that helps us to really get an idea of what we're thinking about, just in terms of weather and snow. I grew up in upstate New York, and so I am definitely accustomed to snow, but that is not true for everybody, right? So a little bit of what we're going to chat about in the next 15 minutes or so. As you can tell, I'm an extra cup of coffee today, so I will move very quickly through our conversation. And all of it's really important. So we'll talk a little bit about culture shock, about student campus life, and kind of what we do in student campus life, about belonging, living in the US is an extra context around social movements, and then talk about how we ask for help and get connected with support. So some of the stages of our culture shock is thinking about like, what is the student experience, right? Sometimes we get here in August. I love August because it is really like 70 or 80 degrees and sunny. And 70 or 80 degrees is my temperature jam. Like that's where I thrive, right? And then it's like this weeks. It sometimes snows. That's not as great. But in the honeymoon break, it's going really well. We're meeting a ton of folks. We're also really nervous, right? Like, what is it like to be at Cornell? I'm going to meet folks. Am I going to be successful in my classes? All of those things, right? So we're just going to get into that kind of anxiety or adjustment nowadays. And then eventually we come out on the other side thinking of like, what is this acceptance like? How do we move towards that? How do we embrace new friendships? How do we work through some of the challenging things, but also have some good experiences too? And that sometimes comes with time, right? In the US and in the new country or place. This one's thinking about our stress levels. Has anybody ever been up in the yellow/red where we're like burned out in these 74 naps? Yeah, you see some folks, some staff in the back was like, huh? Yeah. I see other things are here, right? So as we chat about how we get help and how we get support, we'll also identify that some stress can be really helpful for us. So as we get towards the first half of this, to that good stress peak, that can be some of that good stress that really motivates us, right, to do our schoolwork, to engage with others, to think about what our next steps are, our internships. Do we want to study abroad or study in a different country? Do we want to use ChatGPT to help us do that and make sure that what we're writing is actually better than what ChatGPT can produce for us? Oh, heck yeah. We know that it will be for folks in this room, let's be honest, right? And your version will be much better than what ChatGPT can provide. But sometimes we never hear this exhaustion, anger, panic, anxiety, and then a breakdown. We want to be in this place where we get to this yellow arc in the middle. And if it starts to go beyond that, how do we ask for help? And I think that's something that we ask a lot on campus. It's just reaching out and saying, hey, I think I need to chat with somebody. I think I need to talk more. I think I need support. What does that look like? And so our goal is to stop it at the yellow arc before it is beyond that. And let's talk about what we're about as students in this life, right? These are our values. We have the ability, we really start with belonging. We want to make sure that folks are here in a place that feels comfortable. They really belong on this campus. You have community, you have other folks that you can talk to. You are really in the right academic home, right? Major classes, those kind of things. And do that really developing a sense of well-being as a part of that. Belonging is first on purpose. We feel like we don't belong, and sometimes that impacts our well-being. And then therefore it impacts how we grow and how we collaborate with one another. So just helpful to think through how those flow well. As we talk about belonging on campus, there's over 1,000 student organizations, which is bananas to me. There's so many student organizations. And if you don't find one that really fits in the interest group, you have the ability to create one. And so that can be really helpful as you're navigating campus. If there's something that doesn't really fit that sense of belonging, there's options for you to be able to support that. We have student leadership roles on campus. Here are a couple of those student leadership roles that we have on campus. We have tons of opportunity to volunteer. We think about our Icon Center and how we give back to the community, but also how we learn more. Intramurals and club sports. Does anybody enjoy athletic things? I'm a former student athlete, so I'm like, yes, let's play basketball, right? Okay, see some hands. That's amazing. We love that. And I think that's a different way to be able to connect with our fellow students, but also think about how we can actually move our body, right? And what does that look like and how is that helpful? And then some student employment on campus. And sometimes we may have questions about that as an international student, and how do we lean into our friends at Global Learning. So I also wanted to spend a few minutes just talking about some social movements, talk about some challenging topics or some topics that might be challenging in different experiences you might have here in the US. So I wanted to provide some US context to a couple of different items, which is gender inclusivity, racial equity, and then anti-Asian racism. So just a disclaimer that we acknowledge that you may have experience in the US and perhaps in your home countries. And we have spaces where you can find community and support. We're going to talk about some of those pieces. Gender inclusivity and the LGBTQ plus community. Some items that are important here for us is that you heard me introduce myself with my pronouns, right? Those are optional in most spaces for you to say, yep, I use a pronoun she and her. And other folks might have other pronouns that are very important to them. So a lot of folks will ask you to provide an introduction with pronouns. We have a number of student organizations that also support individuals as they're navigating parts of their LGBTQ identity and embracing their LGBTQ identity, which are Haven, as I mentioned here, the LGBTQ plus Graduate Student Association, Gender Justice Advocacy Coalition, and then our support offices, which is the Gender Equity Resource Center and the LGBT Resource Center as well. We talked a lot about racial equality. Some of the topics that have come up in the past, really thinking through how we engage in different parts of law enforcement is a historical part of this. And here on our campus, is really thinking through, you'll see a lot of our community engagement officers from Cornell University Police out in the community doing programming, having really good conversations. And so those topics are a little different on our campus. There's some of the historical context that goes into that. Like Black Lives Matter versus All Lives Matter, as well as really thinking through some racial inequality pieces that happen globally, but probably more so in the US, and conversations about that. Conversations about why our identity is important, and how we show up in that space. So Black Lives Matter is an important topic on our campus, has been historically in the last 4 or 5 years, and continues to be as well. Our campus organizations, Student United. We also have an Associate Dean of Student Empowerment, of Black Student Empowerment as well. And so that role is newer to our campus. Our Dean of Students Office provides the Center support, Center for Equity, Engagement, and Belonging, has also provided a Black Student Empowerment role because we know that that is an important topic on our campus that we need to continue to support students through English. Another topic is anti-Asian racism. This has been a topic that's more so been at the forefront as we have begun topics more recently on our campus of COVID-19, to use your full name. And thinking through this Asian fetishization, The idea that the minority myth, the model minority myth that happens that Asians must be X, Y, and Z within our campus or nationally, right? And so for us, that's a topic that does come up in our, we think about our student organizations as well as our support resources that can help as we're navigating that on our campus. Our Asian American Center provides a great deal of support. We're really navigating how do I show up in spaces, how do I work through that with my, as a member of an Asian descent, and then how do I also think through not always needing to be or live into this model minority myth as well, and how do I explore that? We like to chat through our centers. There's student equity, empowerment, and belonging. That is a long name, but we just refer to our centers as the centers. I wanted to provide all of them here on the screen as well as their geographic location on our campus. As you can see, there are 8 of them. Asian and Asian American Center, Black Student Empowerment, First Gen and Low Income Student Support, Gender Equity Resource Center, Latinx Student Empowerment, Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Transgender Resource Center, which will also be called our LGBT Resource Center, the Office of Spirituality and Meaning Making, as well as undocumented staff and student support. And as I mentioned, underneath in parentheses are the geographic location on our campus as well. Mental wellness, how do we take care of us, right? How do we take care of our physical health as well as our mental health? Can be really helpful to think through and have a plan of support around. As I mentioned with the arc that happened before, we want to pause before we get at the yellow, before we get to the red. I call the red the oh no zone, right? And here it's called struggling in crisis, right? And that might be different for all of us. It provides some examples here in orange and red of what that might look like for some of us in the space. When we get to the yellow zone in this graph here, this image as well, that's the point that we want you to encourage yourself and encourage your friends to seek support from our campus, whether that is from one of our centers team, or that is from our Office of Student Support and Advocacy Services, or one of our other resources. I love when our students are in yellow, not in yellow, in the green, like I've got this, and you're like, yeah, you got this, you can do this, right? We're sleeping, kind of in our normal to us pattern. We're able to communicate effectively, the items that are listed here as well. Think about being connected, right? On our campus. That was different for all of us. I talk about how I have small humans, I have kiddos, right? I have one kiddo that is a super extrovert. And she wants to be around people all of the time. The other one is like, give me a book, I'll see you tomorrow, right? She is an introvert, like, whoa. Very much introvert. And so within that, is thinking through this connectedness piece and how that works well for us, because it's different for all of us. But in that is this research that really thinks that the sense of belonging, right? Social support, as well as the things that we're connected to, helps us to be able to be successful in college and in the day-to-day world. So that's really helpful. Friends, family, classmates, faculty, staff. We like to think of when we're maybe potentially needing more support. Is how do we call our administrators on call? Our administrators are on call are non-clinical employees who are available to students in distress, whatever that could be. Sometimes that is individuals who unfortunately have somebody pass away in their family, or who's really close to them. How do we navigate that support and what it looks like, or sometimes smaller details too. Some big deal things that might be happening in your space. So this is how you get a hold of us. Administrator on call, check on the Public Safety Communication Center. If you don't have this number in your phone, it is great. It's a fantastic number to have in your phone to be connected. And our Public Safety Communication Center is available 24/7. You can just ask and talk to the administrator on call. Here's what we can help with. I know that you wanted to know, so we provided you some examples. Academic consideration is really that request for flexibility from our faculty as we're working through something. Student disability services, follow up on a transport, go to the hospital. That takes a lot of energy, right? To go to the hospital, sometimes we're navigating and follow up with that. We can support. Sometimes our student athletes, the connection with athletics. our friends who are an international student is how we get some of our questions answered from our global learning colleagues. And what does that look like in terms of the follow-up? And then emergency funding, because sometimes the funds are really important. We have our team available each and every day from 8 to 5. You can call us. You can also drop by our office. We are located in Willard Strait 200. Below the dining hall, I put most things in context to food. So below the dining hall. But just helpful to know where we are. So feel free to stop by or call at any time. And thinking about our resources, right? I like to mention the third one here, which is visitithaca.com. And you're like, I'm not visiting, I live here, right? Like I'm here 9 months a year. I've lived here for 5 years and stuff. I've lived here for 5 years, and I still use that website sometimes because sometimes there's events happening that I didn't know, right? I was like, next festival is happening. So that can provide some really a great calendar of events or things that you might want to try or attend in the Indiana area as well. Where do you feel like you're in that no zone, in that red area of those graphs, right? In crisis, what does that look like? As I talked about here, right? About 20% of our Cornell students seek support from counseling center. Cornell Health Counseling Center staff. And so I like to share that with you because sometimes people are working through really hard things. We think it's just us, right? Like, ooh, just me, nobody else is working through hard things. And in fact, like 20% of our campus is seeking support from our services. We have 24/7 access as well. As I mentioned, Cornell University Public Safety Communication Center, or dispatch, as we might call it, if that number's not been found. And CAPS, or Counseling and Psychology Services, support 24 hours a day as well. Yeah. Student disability services. This might be different in our US context than it is in other places. We'd like to make sure that you chat about it here. Student disability services really works to provide that support to make sure that campus is accessible, equitable, and inclusive of students with disabilities. If it's a barrier to your learning, student disability services wants to be able to support. So really thinking of how we can recognize multiple ways to achieve the success as a student. And sometimes that might mean that we need some accommodations. We might need some extended time to take our exams, or a distraction-free environment, or some of those other things that might be supported in those ways. So thinking of like, they will work through a variety of ways to provide documentation. It's not like I must have a doctor's note to be able to provide that. Student disability services will be able to work with you to be able to determine what support would be helpful. Ooh. All right, I just shared 4 million pieces of information very quickly. I mentioned I had an extra cup of coffee today, right? So I'd love for you to share, just for the person next to you, something that you want to remember from what we talked about today. Go for it. Yeah. You can hear yours. You can hear yours. Sometimes that is more helpful, like if you can hear me raise your hand and then some folks like look around like, why is everyone sitting what they're doing? What is happening, right? What are some things that came up in your conversations? There's no wrong answers, or there's few wrong answers. Yes. Yes, in your butt. Yeah, that is critical. Absolutely. What else? Yeah, gender equity resources. Yeah. What else? Yeah.
Because we showed the phone numbers for the explain
I love that. I heard you say that between us, we shared the resources, the phone numbers, to counseling and support on this. I love that. Awesome. Right? What else? Mental health support for mental health? Yes, absolutely. Mental health support for mental health. I'll take it. Yes. I have one more. Yeah. One more time.
That's good.
Yeah, just getting over international studies, right? I sometimes as a staff member pick up the phone and call my colleagues in global learning and say, hey, I need some help. Can you help guide me through this, right? Sometimes I don't even know all the answers and I work here, right? So if I don't know all the answers and I work here, I definitely don't expect students to know all the answers, right? It's just asking for help and asking. I say no's are free. I'm gonna have it pick up the phone call just about anybody and be like, hi, can you possibly help? What does that look like, right? Thank you so much for participating with me. I'll share at the end my email address, just so you have it. I think I have the easiest net idea in Canvas. Unless it's like, president at Cornell, that's really easy, right? Or whatever it may be. But I have all the same numbers. So I will encourage you, if you need a contact on Canvas, you think that a question is silly, or you're not sure who to ask, and I suggest there's no silly questions. So I'm happy to receive your email. We'll get you connected to support. If you're like, ooh, I don't know if there's a good question that I can ask somebody. You definitely can drop me a note and I can help to get you connected to where you want me to be. Sound good? Cool. Is it the easiest net idea in Canvas? Yes. Love it. That's awesome. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much, Jim. Really appreciate your time. Hopefully everyone noticed just how welcoming Kim is, and the entire team of students office, same thing with Office of Global Learning, International Services. Keep emphasizing this. You have a whole bunch of people here that want to hear from you, that expect to hear from you. And if you go to the wrong person, it's not the wrong person, because they will connect you to the right person. So before we continue, I want to take a quick stretch break. So if you want to go ahead and take a moment, you can leave your stuff sitting. If you want to stand up or just lift up your arms. Can I hear people make like a good come on sound? Come on, Hunter, come on. You've just been sitting on planes and trains and buses. Just do it. There we go. Stand up if you need to. All right, come on. For those of you, that can or choose to stand up, we're going to jump a couple of times. All right, come on, let's go. Everybody ready to jump? All right, you're going to lead us. All right, you're going to lead us. Quick jump. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. All right, hold on. We got a couple people going to take bathroom breaks. That's okay. Make sure to come back right away. Hold on a moment. Everybody? So hold on, we're just setting up the stretch. So unless you have to use the washroom, come on back to your seats, because now we're gonna have people leaving on us. Hold on. Come on back, everybody. Come back in. Almost there, almost done. Okay, everybody. We're gonna go ahead and take a seat now. Got two more people to go. Okay, everyone, take a seat. All right, if you can hear me, if you can hear me, raise your hand. If you can hear me, raise your hand. All right, thank you very much. So go ahead and take a seat. And so now, for our next presentation, I would like to introduce Garrison, Senior Immigration Advisor from my office, the Office of Global Learning. So everybody got to listen up. We've got important information coming up. We've got 2 more presentations. First, welcome.
Here's a fun fact, we're almost done, like 90% of the presentation we're done. And mine is most important one. It's like, you just have to pay attention to this one and then you can screw something. We've got one more round, this is the one we've done. But first of all, again, as Brandon said, I'm from the Office for International Services, which is part of the Global Learning Office. So I want to first welcome you from our office, and I've done this for many years. I've been welcoming seriously. I always love this part. The first thing is I get to meet so many people from so many different places. I see the enthusiasm, the excitement. I also see kind of that whole thing of getting tired. So I completely understand the process you're going through right now. But what I'm going to do right now is kind of give you an overview of some of the things that we're going to cover that are going to help you to maintain your status while you're in the United States. Right? So here's our kind of an overview agenda. So the first thing is I'm just going to give you a brief overview. What does our office actually do? What does international service do? Right? And then maintaining status. What does that even mean for you as students? And working on and off campus, okay, and international travel. Okay, so this is kind of my team, as you see, pretty much, except one person. This is our team serving both international students and scholars. So approximately, this team serves approximately 10,000 people. So it's a busy office, but it's never loaded in my office. So what we do, we kind of are your place to get questions answered regarding international immigrations, or anything under that umbrella, right? Whether it's about travel or working, meaning internships, or how many, can take X number of credits, and is it okay if I don't take X number of credits? Anything that's related to that. So what I like to look at this place actually is kind of your home away from home. As was mentioned earlier, even Kim mentioned, well, you can go to her office as well. Maybe she won't know the answer, but she'll be able to put you in touch with her. Same thing with our office, right? It's a lot of times easier to say, oh, I also go to the International Services office, so call them to get an answer. Maybe it may not be immigration related all the time, but we might be able to put you in touch with somebody who can help you navigate through your situation. Okay. The other thing is, we do kind of, as it was mentioned earlier, we work very hard to maintain our website. We try to look at it from your perspective to see what is it easy to understand and information that's relevant. Right? So you don't have to use ChatGPT to get information. Because trust me, I use ChatGPT to get some questions of immigration just to check that. Because I don't trust that again. At least not for immigration purposes, because it's information from all over the website around the world, and there's a lot of garbage information out there. But it's what it's doing is kind of aggregating that and putting that information. So I would say if you have any immigration related questions, so definitely look at our website, because that's available 24/7. You don't have to wait for the office to be open in order to get your fundamental questions answered, right? And if you've got something that is very unique or complex, then definitely contact our office. We do external communication via monthly newsletters, and that's going to have important information about immigration matters. So there's not going to be a lot of information coming to you from our office. We're very mindful of how we communicate externally, so not to dilute the information that we send to you. Because whenever it's coming from office, it's going to be very important. That's why we're sending it. Okay. So that's going to have that information. We'll also provide advice via phone, so you can call our office to get an answer if you need something quickly. Usually in 24 hours, we'll do it. Okay. We also have email. You can email our office and get information that way. And of course, presentations, but more importantly, the tool that's used number one for our office is advice. The majority of students out there, probably almost 99% of students who come in for advice, they do it through Zoom because it's a very convenient. You can be anywhere, sitting around. I get Zoom appointments even from overseas. So that's fine. Just come in, go ahead and have an appointment. That way, you've got various different ways to reach your office. The theme that you're going to probably see is, or have noticed, communication. Right? It's a partnership. So we communicate with you, and it's really exciting when students reach out. You'd be surprised that we encourage students to reach out a lot more than having them reach out a lot less. If you've got any question, it's better to say, well, instead of asking, well, let me ask my friend, just reach out to us. We make it so easy for you. Right? So you don't have to hunt websites, you don't have to go on the wide web and put it in the search engine and figure things out. If you have it on our website, if it's not there, just communicate with us. Okay? Okay, so the first topic of maintaining status. What does that mean? Well, essentially what maintaining status means is you're doing what your visa requires you to do, right? If you're here on, majority of you are probably here on an F1 visa. Some of you might be here on a J1 visa. Both of these visa categories are for education purposes. That's their number one thing. Okay? So when you got the visa, and you use that visa for entry, you've kind of gotten into a contract with the U.S. government that says, oh, okay, yes, please give me this visa, and I will abide by the requirements of that visa. Okay? So these are kind of the requirements of that visa category. One is making sure that since you've arrived, majority of you probably have activated your status. If you've not, make sure you do that by going on our website. What this does is it helps the government, like, yes, you let the student in, and they're now here participating in the program like they're supposed to. Okay. Second thing is maintaining full-time enrollment. Right? For undergraduates, for everybody, actually, all international students at Cornell, it's 12 credits per semester. This is the minimum you have to pay. So for fall and for spring, 12 credits. And since because you're going to be a continuing student in next fall, summer is kind of a break or an optional semester, whether you enroll or not. You're still maintaining status if you don't enroll for summer. Okay. But for fall and spring, make sure you're enrolling 12 credits. Again, if you feel that, oh, okay, I'm not, for some reason, I'm sick or so, I can't enroll full time. Again, communicate early, communicate often with our office. Communicate with your academic advisor to make sure what are some other options available. Okay. Working off campus. Anytime you work off campus, it requires a special work permit. Okay, that's an authorization for you that such as internships, right? That authorization will come from our office. So there's a process, and I'm going to cover that in brief about off-campus employment. But you'll require that authorization, and you will get that authorization. Only then can you start working. So be very mindful of that. Okay. I know some of this stuff is not as exciting as the other presentations, but it's really crucial to make sure that you're following this information so that you can continue to participate in your academics and be. Okay, so making sure that you're following all Cornell's academic and conduct policies, right? Because that again plays a role in maintaining status. So just follow those. When in doubt, again, ask questions. Right? Making sure you're complying with all federal or state laws. Right? when it comes to like driving, making sure you're driving with a driver's license. I'm just using these things as an example, right? Making sure that if you're going to consume alcohol, you're doing it at a legal age, making sure that you are, complying with any other policies, such as not working without authorization outside of campus, right? So these are the things you need to pay attention to. And of course, if you change your address, make sure you update that either in your student services. If you do that in your student services, it'll automatically update it with the government as well. But if you feel like, oh, I tried it and it's not working for some reason, contact us and we can help you with that stuff as well. Yes.
I'm sorry, when you talk about address, do you mean like home address or like
US residential homes. Right. So yeah, while you're here, so let's say this semester you're going to be in one place, or within 10 days or 20 days, you're going to switch to another place. Just update that in the system. Okay. And then we get updated. And everything in we've got our own database, and it pulls everything from the student service, all of your information. So if you make a change there, such as the address one, it'll get pulled into ours, and then automatically be sent to your government database, and it'll update that. Okay. All right, making sure that you are having a valid passport. A valid passport basically means it's not expired or it's not damaged where really you can't read it or anything like that, right? Make sure, take a look. Most of you probably have a passport that's 10 years long or, several years into the future. But it's always a good idea to just take a look at your passport and go, okay, I think my passport's going to expire in about 3 years. Okay, I'll worry about it in 2 years. Okay, but making sure you keep that document valid. Making sure that you're starting out now, but some of this you don't really have to know. This is the stuff that I'm telling you that's already on our website, right? So you don't have to remember everything I'm saying, just know that it's going to be available on the website. So you can always go and take a look and go, I noticed that when I came in and said something about maintaining status, let me go check the website. And you'll get that information. But making sure all your documents, like immigration documents, such as your I-24, if you're a J-1B, I-2019 is still valid, right? If you lose your I-20 or it's misplaced, you'll contact us and we can get you another one. It's pretty easy to do, okay? And it happens, it's not uncommon, all right? And again, this I hope is not gonna happen now, the transfer out. I hope the transfer happens once you're done with Cornell, all right? But if you were to change, let's say if you finish your undergraduate here and you want to go to another institution, you're going to contact us because there's a process where you take your immigration record and transfer it to the other institutions so they can give you the immigration copy. But again, something later on, if you change your degree, most likely let's say if you're in one major or undecided right now and you've got a major change, once that change has been enacted by your department, contact us and we will make sure that gets reflected in your immigration record and give you a new I-20 for DS-COVID-19 that has that coverage, right? So let's say you came in and you're undecided and now you switch to engineering, okay, well, we'll get that updated and then you can use that updated document. Right. And of course, make sure that after you've graduated, you're going to have an opportunity to work when there's a process that you apply for that, and I'll cover that real quick. And those of you who are going to be or are in a STEM field, you get to work for a longer time, such as that I'll talk about. So just be mindful of that. Okay, on-campus employment. The easiest thing to do is to work on campus. If you're an F1 student, you don't need any special authorization to work on campus. Okay, that means working in Cornell, like the libraries, the dining hall, for your professor, or something like that. You don't need any special authorization for that. You can work up to 20 hours while you're studying, right? So come winter break, you could work and you're not enrolled in one winter break classes, then you can work more than 20 hours. But fall and spring, generally 20 hours. If you're a J1 student, then you need just a letter from us authorizing you to do that. But if you're F1 student, no special order should be. Okay. But it goes back to the first thing that I mentioned was making sure your status is activated. So make sure you double check that. Okay. Okay, so the other thing what I would say is that don't assume that everybody knows the regulations and all that about immigration statuses. Learn that and be armed with that tool so you can help yourself and the employer, right? So that's why the last one also you're responsible for maintaining not only your status, but making sure that hey, if I'm working for let's say on campus for a professor or at another library or something like that, making sure that you're really aware that okay, I need to only work 20 hours and express that to the person you are working with, right? Your supervisor, say just as a reminder, I'm in transition, I don't work X number of hours, right? It's always a good idea to do that. Okay, off-campus employment. Basically, off-campus employment for F1s is divided into two. There is the idea of practical trainings called curricular practical training and the optional practical training. So remember I was saying that this is your visas are primarily educational visas, right? And that's why it's not in broader sense employment, right? This is that what the government considers practical training. You're studying some things so the government saying, hey, it's a good idea to get practical training in that theoretical area, right? So you become a stronger person that starts understanding what you just are learning as well as becoming really good in that field. So they're couched under the practical training. And for J1 students, the same thing, though the terminology is academic training. But everything is what you do is kind of driven by the program that you're studying. Whether it's getting that internship off campus, that's still driven by your major, right? And this is not something you necessarily have to think about now, but it may be in about a year or a little bit longer when you start to think about getting internships. Okay, so the first one, curricular practical training. This is a very brief overview. This is not comprehensive. That's on our website, right? So you've got to be here for at least 2 full semesters and enroll full time, right? For generally speaking, so if you're here starting fall and spring, that's 2 full semesters. If you enroll, you'll be eligible for internships next summer. Again, as long as it's in your major, right? So this is usually, like I said, it's usually used for internships, majority of the time. It's for internship. It doesn't really matter what the title or distinction is what the employer calls that position, right? But for all practical purposes, it's an internship that you're doing because it's for short term. It's used before graduation. So because it's curricular driven, it's as long as you're participating in your degree and making normal progress. If it's a 4-year degree, you're doing it within 4 years, you can participate in practical training. It's granted either full-time or part-time. So maybe in the summer you want to do full-time, maybe in another semester you can do part-time, right? So again, but it's all part of that practical training process. The application starts with our office. It starts by you. You're the one who starts this application. It goes to your academic advisor for approval. It comes to our office for review, and then approval. And we're able to give you that authorization. Okay, it'll show up. That authorization is going to show up on a new I-20. If you're a DS, if you're a J1 student, it's going to show up on your DS 2019. But it'll be on that new document, and it'll be for a specific employer. So let's say you want to work for Microsoft, it'll say Microsoft starting date, ending date, whether it's full time or part time, and kind of an address of the employer. Okay. Again, we were talking about the website. Oh, here it is, international.globallearning.cornell.edu, or just you This one, I don't mind if you Google it. Then you can do Cornell International Services and it'll get you there, okay? Okay, the other part I was talking about was the optional part. This is generally used post-graduation. Like when you apply for it in your graduating semester and it starts after you graduate. And this is generally the same thing, 2 full semesters, but this gives you at least 12 months of employment authorization. So this comes from the government. It starts with us, but it actually is the US government that's going to give you an employment card that has your information, says, okay, now you can work in your field for 12 months. If you're a STEM major, then you can apply for an additional 24 months. So you could essentially end up getting work permission for 36 months for your degree. Okay. So be mindful of that. Again, this is not something you want to remember now. You will also get this information as part of that newsletter that goes out monthly. Okay, the last one's travel. Well, essentially, it's not travel within the United States, but it's not even exiting, it's coming back in, just like you were coming in now. So you want to make sure when you're leaving or before you leave that you've got a passport again that's valid. It's not expired, right? If it's going to expire, make sure you get a new passport, make sure it's in good condition. Make sure your visa stamp, it's not saying visa stamp forever. So that means the length of how long the visa is given to you varies, right? From geographic location. It could be also specific to you. So don't ask the friend, well, hey, how long is your visa? Oh, mine is for 3 years. Oh, I'm going to assume that mine is for 3 years. Don't do that. It's going to be specific to you. So take a look at that visa, stamp that to your passport, and you will know that, okay, it's valid for 3 years, or 2 years, or 5 years, such, right? So you need to have that, it's the visa, make sure that it's valid. For Canadian citizens, you don't need a visa. You probably already know that since you're already here. So they're visa exempt, right? And making sure your I-20, the page 2 will have a travel signature on it, right? Just take a look at that. Generally, when we give you an I-20, we will automatically sign that. Our office is the only one who's authorized to sign those legal documents. Okay. So make sure it's there, and that signature is usually valid for 12 months from the date it was signed. So be signed and dated. So it's valid for 12 months. Okay. If it's not there, go to our website and you can request an electronic I-20 sent to you, and it'll have travel. Right? Making sure it's a good idea, though it's not required, it's a good idea to carry funding documents, meaning that whatever is listed on your immigration document of how is that education being covered, paid for, you carry a copy of those documents. Maybe the bank statement is coming from you, maybe you're being funded partially by Cornell, or it's a combination of two, just carry a copy of that. Why? Because that officer could, as a part of it, ask for that. It's always a good idea to have that document. And of course, carry proof of enrollment. Right. That is through the registrar's website. You can get an academic transcript and also what is known as certificate of enrollment. And that'll say, okay, yes, this student is enrolled for this. So then if you go in between a semester, right, when there's a break, maybe you want to leave or Canada or any other country for a short while and come back, or for a winter break, and you're not going, you're going to a third country. Make sure you carry it. And again, what does it show? Hey, I was there. I was doing what the visa requires. Okay, and that was it. All right. I'll leave this on for a little while. Take it out. Yeah. But again, I'll say that with all honesty, you know, we are in this field, we're not talking about immigration. We can talk for a long time, but it's always exciting to get to be part of this process, like, because it is your process. Okay? So communicate with us, and we'll definitely communicate with you. Okay? Have a wonderful semester. Thank you.
Great, well, thank you very much, Church. Really appreciate it. I know a lot of information, as it's very clear. The website is crucial, and I really want to emphasize how important it is. Because we hear a lot from students that, oh, you know, I went online, did a Google search, and maybe, you know, artificial intelligence, talk to a friend. Don't take that risk. Reach out to us. We have a team of people over at Caldwell Hall that are there to help you and provide information that is based on US policy, Cornell policy. So, last but not least, I would like to invite up to stage Officer Canzella from the CU Police. This is
That's not true. But you can't. So you're digging. Perfect, thanks. Okay, I'm sorry to be going last, but it's okay. All right, so I promise you that I'm gonna not be wordy, okay? We're gonna get the important information across and make sure you don't have any questions. And get you out of here. What's after this? What are they doing after this? Nothing?
That break.
A break?
Mentors, a break with their mentors,
okay.
And then dinner.
All right, cool. I love dinner. Okay, so this is where we're located. Cornell Public Safety is located in Barton Hall. Does anyone raise your hand if you've seen Barton Hall yet? Straight across from the Statler Hotel. As you can tell from the picture, it's a big, beautiful castle-looking building. That's where the lost and found is. More than likely, that's where you're going to go. Why you're going to go to Barton Hall? Because if you lose something and you're trying to find it, okay? So it's not too far from here, maybe a 5-minute walk on the other side of the Statler Hotel, okay? So that's where our headquarters is. That's where you can go. It's open 24/7, right? So we have a full police agency here. So we don't go home and leave university without police, right? We have 3 shifts that operate 24/7. And that number there, the 617-255-1111 number, that operates like 911 on campus, right? So 911 here in the United States is our number that you call to get help, okay? So wherever you are, you can dial 911 and that will get you emergency services, okay? It still works on campus, so you can still call 911 on campus to get help. But if you call 607-255-1111, that's going to ring right into our dispatch center, which is in Barton Hall, and we can get you help a little bit quicker, okay? So it's just a difference of not having to transfer the call, okay? Anybody want to guess what our emergency response time is on campus?
5 seconds.
Oh, okay. Realistic. That's like me saying I'm going to be done in a minute. All right, anybody else?
5 minutes.
Oh, close, 2 to 3 minutes, okay? So 2 to 3 minutes for an emergency response time, okay? So it's gonna be a priority 1 call. So that would be like there is a threat to life or a crime in progress. Okay, so as you can see in this picture, our officers are friendly and helpful, okay? So we spend a lot of time training our officers, and we hand select all of the officers that are in our police force so that they are they're just really friendly and they kind of know the Cornell way, right? That we operate and we interact with a lot of international students and a very diverse population. So we are pretty used to dealing with all different kinds of people from all across the world, and we're good at it. So, and we're also apparently good at bowling, as you can see. Okay, so see, these are some of the programs that we offer at Cornell University. I'm one of the community engagement officers. So we have a special unit that that really just deals with engaging with the community. So doing things like this. So presentations and programming. And as you can see by this list, We offer response to active threat programs. You can learn a little bit more on how to respond if there's a threat on campus. So we do run, hide, fight is how we want you to respond. Recognizing workplace violence, alcohol awareness programs. So we do have drug goggles that are fun to use. They kind of simulate being intoxicated. So it's a little bit of an easy way for you to learn how not to get impaired, right? Overview and tours, Stay Safe 360, personal safety plans, drug awareness programs, winter driving programs. So if anyone is planning to drive a vehicle on campus and you've never driven in the snow, that might be something you might want to reach out and take. Gorge safety, so we do have 2 gorges on campus and there is no swimming in the gorges. Cash handling, key tag program, and Rave Mobile Guardian, which we'll talk more about. Okay, so there's a bunch of different ways that you can get a hold of us to get help, right? And depending on what kind of emergency you have, one of these ways may be better suited for you at that time, okay? So we're going to make sure that everyone has the number 607-255-1111 in your phone number. So everybody have that number saved. So you can put that in as Cornell Public Safety or Cornell Police. Either way is fine. Just as long as you know that there's really no wrong reason to call that number, okay? So you can call it if you have an emergency to report. You can call it if you need to file a police report. Maybe you had your bike stolen or something of that nature. You can also call it if you're looking to talk to somebody in lost and found. So for something that's not an emergency. Or like we heard earlier, if you need to talk to the admin on call. That's also a perfectly acceptable reason, okay? So you can go in person, right? You can walk right into Barton Hall. It's open 24 hours a day, and you can file a police report at 2 in the morning, okay? And you can also go there if you are feeling unsafe and you really just need, to be with people. Maybe you feel like you're being followed on campus, pretty atypical, doesn't really happen too frequently, but just know that that's an option, okay? The blue light or emergency phones. How many of you have noticed some blue lights on campus already? Raise your hands. Good. Okay, so you should really be able to identify those exterior blue lights at night, right? They light up blue just like that in the picture. Your emergency phones are going to be located inside, okay? So you'll see those near stairwells and exits. Usually looks like a yellow call box on the wall. It does the same thing that a blue light phone does. So if you push the button, it's going to ring right into our dispatch center and you will hear a telecommunicator come on and say, please, what's your emergency, okay? So some reasons you might want to use a blue light or emergency phone is if your cell phone is inoperable, maybe your battery died, or you forgot it, or you became separated from it, or it's just not working, okay? And another reason that you might want to use it, a blue light emergency phone, is that we can tell your exact location. So if you aren't sure, maybe you haven't become that familiar with parts of campus yet, and you're not sure where you are, but you need help, that might be a preferable way rather than using your phone. Because cell phone triangulation is not as easy as TV tells us, okay? It actually is quite a bit harder, okay? Unless you have Rave Guardian, then it's a different story. And we're going to talk about Rave Guardian. So Rave Guardian is an app that Cornell University provides faculty, staff, and students to have for free. And the silent witness form, okay? So the silent witness form is one of 2 ways that you can anonymously report red flags. Why are people afraid of reporting red flag information? Anybody know? Take a guess? All right, I'll save you. Retaliation, okay? Maybe this individual that you have information about that you want to share is a roommate or a class member, okay? So if you have any information that you want to share that could be helpful to potentially an investigation, then that's how you can report that, okay? And then our CUPD website and email, okay? So it's pretty easy to find if you just Google Cornell University Police. All right, so Rave Guardian. Rave Guardian, this is an app that we really want everyone to download, okay? As soon as you get the time. It takes about 10 to 15 minutes to set it up completely. but it has a lot of great features all surrounding safety and security. And again, it's free. So I can tell you, you don't get too much for free, but when you do, you got to take advantage of it, right? So it allows you to set a safety timer. So if you're walking around on campus, you can set up to 5 guardians and they can see they're kind of like virtual escorts. So if you're walking from the library to your dorm and it takes you 10 minutes, you set your safety timer. And if you don't arrive safely, then your guardian is alerted and we can come and look for you, okay? It provides texting with Cornell Police. So if you are in a situation where maybe you can't call, or because you're in a situation where you don't want to talk, maybe you're in a hiding situation, you can text with Cornell Police, okay? This is also the second way you can anonymously report, okay? At the top of the texting portion, there's a sidebar for anonymous reporting. So that's the second way you can anonymously report red flag information, okay? So the lower right-hand corner is a panic alarm button. So that's a 2 to 3 button push that contacts Cornell Public Safety, okay? And then it also has university resources and safety tips, which can be really helpful, especially if you're trying to help someone else, rather than sifting through websites and the Cornell University webpage. All right, so here's a QR code. If anybody wants to snap a quick picture with your phone, so you can download it when you have time. Okay, so like I said before, the silent witness form is because we want you to be able to report information without fear of retaliation. And there's 2 places you can find that on our website, so cupolice.cornell.edu. And also our Associate Vice President Honan sends out a public safety message in your email every week, okay? So when you get that public safety message, make sure you're reading it, because it does have very valid and up-to-date information on some trends that we're seeing on campus, right? So maybe if we're having an uptick in bicycle larcenies or laptop thefts, or maybe people trespassing in the dorms, that's all information that you would want to know, okay? In order to keep yourself safe and keep yourself from becoming a victim, okay? All right, so things to consider when you call, right? If you need to call to report a crime, we really want you to be able to identify as many facts as possible, right? So who, what, when, where, and how, if you know that information, okay? So if you're trying to report that a crime has occurred and you have a suspect potentially, gender, clothing, behavior, any kind of weapons, direction of travel, or current location is very helpful. Okay, and we talked about crimes, right? Does anyone want to guess what our #1 reported crime is on campus currently? Theft, right? Larceny, right? So the penal code calls it larceny, but it is in fact theft, right? So in order to not be a victim of theft, what do we need to do? Lock your stuff up, right? So whether or not it's like locking up your bicycle or your dorm room, or taking your laptop with you when you're studying in the library, don't leave it in a cubby and go get coffee, okay? 9 times out of 10, it'll be there when you get back. But if the wrong person is an opportunist and they go by and they see a laptop unattended, they can take that, okay? And typically it's not usually the laptop, the cost of the laptop that really stresses students out. It's what's on the laptop, right? Because we know that you put a lot of work throughout the semester on that laptop and it could really cause a lot of undue stress for you. Okay, so if we can reduce the desire, the ability, or the opportunity, then we can really reduce the opportunity that you'll be a victim of crime. All right, so lock up your stuff, right? Whether or not it's rooms, vehicles, bicycles, electronics. Record serial numbers. This is really important. We see this happen all the time. If your bicycle does get stolen and you come into Cornell Police to report it stolen, one of the things they're going to ask you is if you have a serial number. Okay, So every bicycle or laptop, anything that's of value has a serial number, and you're gonna wanna record that information, because if we do recover your property, we're gonna have a hard time proving it's yours if you don't have a serial number, okay? So make sure that you're taking photos and writing that information down. Keep it somewhere safe, a secondary location that's not just your cell phone, okay? Keep backup information. So things like emergency phone numbers. A lot of us now with technology and cell phones, we don't memorize phone numbers anymore, okay? But if you lose your cell phone or it gets broken, you're gonna wanna have those numbers backed up so that you can call home or call other places, right? Report suspicious circumstances. So you can call 607-255-1111, use Rave Guardian. Don't let individuals into your residence hall without a Cornell ID, right? So I know it feels rude to not hold the door for people, but really individuals will wait for you to go in, even if they're not supposed to be in your dorm, and that's how they'll gain access, okay? So if they have access, they can use their own Cornell ID to get in, okay? All right, so this one is really important. Scams and fraud, okay? I'm gonna use an example of a scam that I just personally got on my cell phone the other day by text that's not even on here, okay? These are some of the more common scams that we're seeing, such as IRS, right? So the Internal Revenue Service in the United States is the department that we pay our tax to, okay? They collect our money. And so a lot of these scams will happen around tax time. So taxes are due here around April 15th. So the first few months of the year is when these scams will typically ramp up, right? And especially now when students are coming back to school as well. So some of these scams will ghost phone numbers. So they could even, if you just opened up an account with a bank, they can ghost the bank phone number and call and say you're from the bank and we have a suspicious charge on your card and we need to know your PIN number or your social security number, things of that nature. Don't ever give that information to anyone over the phone, okay? Be very suspicious when you get phone calls like that. I've even hung up on them and called my bank back and said, did you just call me and report that there was fraud on my account? And they've said no. Okay, so be very suspicious when you get those type of phone calls. In the United States, we will never come and arrest you or fine you over the phone, okay? And I cannot tell you enough. If you have any questions and they're telling you to stay on the phone, you can walk to Barton Hall and talk to an officer, okay, while you're on the phone with them, all right? Just don't give away money. Don't go get gift cards and give them the numbers to the gift cards, okay? I say this every year, and every year people still get scammed, okay? Because they're very good at making you afraid that you're gonna get arrested, okay? Please come and ask either our department or the International Student Office, please, before you do that and you're a victim. The money mule scam, so it requires you to send money, usually a check, and to deposit it, and then they ask you to send money elsewhere. So what will happen is the check will clear, and then you'll still send the money. So then you'll be on the hook for money. You'll be out of that money, right? Tech support. So they'll call you on the phone and tell you that you usually have like a malware or viruses on your computer, and they'll gain access to your computer and scam you that way. So you can learn more at consumer.ftc.gov. The one text that I got the other day was from the New York State Thruway Department. That's what it said. And it had a link to it that said I had an outstanding charge and the link was to pay it. So I actually didn't click on the link and I went on my laptop to the New York State Thruway website and it right there said that there's been scam text messages being sent out, okay? So double, triple check, and if you have questions, don't click on anything before you come and check with us. All right, so here's our contact information. I really do mean it when I say that we have an open door policy. So you can send us emails, you can call and reach us that way. If you have any questions from this program that you think of later, feel free to call me. You can call 607-255-1111 and say you want to speak with Officer Jody. I'm the only one, I'm the only Jody at Cornell Police, so you won't get confused with anyone else. Does anyone have any questions right now? Sorry, I know that was pretty fast, but I know you guys want to get out. Any questions? Yes.
What is the most common type of crime that's good for victims?
The most common type of crime? Larceny, so theft. Yep, so theft. Yeah, so just make sure that you're locking up your items as much as possible. Lock your dorm rooms. Don't leave your stuff unattended. And if you're locking up a bike on campus, make sure that you get a really heavy duty lock. And we also can provide a kryptonite lock for you at cost, because we partner with a bike shop on campus, well, post campus. Any other questions? Yes.
Places most common.
Which place is what? Theft most common? You know, it really depends. I would probably say Central Campus is where most of the bikes and things like that are taken from. The libraries, there's a lot of theft from there. Academic buildings. It does still happen in dorm rooms. So again, like as many layers of locking mechanisms as possible. So if people can't get into the dorms and they can't get into your room, then that's 2 layers that they'd have to get through to steal from you, right? So just always, no matter where you are on campus, just make sure you're locking your stuff up, okay? Any other questions? Okay. Thank you so much, you guys. Have a great semester. Thanks.
All right, well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you and all the work that you do. So now a couple of things before we're going to close up. So what I really want to make sure that all of you take away, well, and I should say this, so the information that was covered, you either already have access to the different things that we sent you, or we'll be following up with, the PowerPoint information. I want to make sure that you're walking away feeling like you are welcome here, that you have a campus that is excited that you are here, that you have everyone is ready to hear from you if it's anything that you need. Again, take advantage of all these resources. We've only gone into some of them. There are so many more around campus. In your regular orientation, you're going to learn about even more of the resources that are available. So really do take that away. Know that the Office of Global Learning, our International Services team, the Kurdish and others, we're located in Caldwell Hall. We are ready to hear from you, to see you, stop by, call in, send us an email, set up a Zoom meeting. We can get you connected with the right places.